I've been always talking about calories, how to count the calories, how to know how many calories go in, how many calories go out, how many calories should we eat. But I've also always said that a calorie is not a calorie because there are other things at play in your weight loss journey. For me, it was very important to learn the way the hormones affected my body and my weight loss journey. So today, let's talk about hormones. Understanding hormones was a very important factor in my weight loss journey. It helped me go from 235 pounds to 145 pounds. That was a 90-pound loss, 40 kilograms loss. And the knowledge of how the hormones worked and what should I do to make those hormones assist me in my weight loss journey was super important. Insulin is one of the most important hormones in regulating our body and our metabolism. And this is why it is critical for us to understand how it works. Probably you've heard the term insulin resistance, which plays immensely into the weight loss journey. It is super important to understand. So, what is insulin? Insulin is the main anabolic hormone of the body. Like I mentioned, it regulates the metabolism of carbs, fats, and proteins in your body. How does it work? Well, as soon as the pancreas notices a rise in the blood sugar, and this happens because we just ate carbs transformed into glucose to put into the bloodstream, or eventually some protein, which also generates some glucose, it triggers this rise, and as soon as the pancreas notices this, it starts pumping insulin into your blood current. Now, the way that the insulin works then, as it goes through the blood current, it binds to the cell membranes and opens as a door for the glucose storage. So basically, insulin is like, you go to your place, opens the door, keeps it up, and says, get in here, get everything into the cell, and that's how it stores all your glucose. And when you hear the term insulin resistance, is because you've got so much crammed in the cell, no more glucose is managed to get in as fat, and therefore you become insulin resistant. And this is very bad because it means your glucose remains in your blood, and you don't want that. But when it opens this door, it's not only for glucose, it also does a good thing, which is get all the amino acids and also allow the amino acids to get into the cells. And this is very important because the amino acids is what will enable the DNA replication, your body to grow, and also synthesize new proteins to increase your muscle mass. So it is an important understanding these two things that the insulin does. And after it's done its job, it will either be absorbed by the cell or be degraded into the liver and kidneys. Now, one thing we should notice, and we look at how does the insulin levels and glucose levels go throughout the day as we eat food. So whenever we have the meals, take these examples, these three peaks that we see, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you see that as soon as we start eating and the carbs get into our body, the glucose gets high because your body decomposes all that carbs, sugar into glucose and puts that into the bloodstream. Now, as soon as that happens, and I told you, the pancreas is measuring it and say, oh, glucose is in the blood, let's pump insulin. So what you see is the insulin is immediately a consequence of getting that glucose into your body. And as you can see, as soon as you eat, it's when it triggers this effect. So what happens is if we are always eating, you are always creating these spikes and getting all this insulin and all the glucose into the cells and never burning fat. And that is what becomes so critical. So after you start eating and until you take the last bite, for roughly 4 hours, your body will be absorbing all that glucose and putting that into your cells, replicating the cells, synthesizing the protons, and growing the cells, whatever it does. But it will not absorb fat. It will not go fetch the energy from fat. And so understanding this makes us understand that, well, if we need to get energy and we haven't eaten, like when you are in a fasted state, is when you will be burning the most fat. So it's a good moment, and I use it to do my weightlifting, strength training, resistance training, exercise just before I go and eat. So in the last 2 hours of my fasting, just before I go into a meal, that's when I do my exercise, the fat burning exercise that I want to do. If I wanted to do cardio, I would do that after the meal, while there is still a lot of glucose in the body, and therefore the cardio is very good at burning the glucose as opposed to burning the fat. So doing that, it will allow to take that glucose out of the bloodstream and not allow it to go and store in the fat. So you see the two exercises, they act differently, and as you go with it. Another way to look at this, and another act you can do besides the exercise in this manner, is also reduce the quantity of meals. So if you are continuously eating, as you can see, you are always getting these spikes. You remember last time when I told you that it was not a problem if we overeat at lunch and skip dinner? Well, that's exactly what you will see in this graphic. Is you will not see that spike at late afternoon. Therefore, you will go into a rested state throughout your sleep and do all that fat burning, which is putting the work towards you. Another important hormone is leptin. And leptin is the hormone that signals the levels of energy throughout your body. So when it starts getting higher levels, it will tell basically your brain that your body is with good enough reserved energy. So to understand leptin, it is produced by the white fat tissue, and it is not linear. It's the more fat you have, it kind of becomes exponential and starts producing a lot of leptin in your blood. And it was also produced by the lower part of the stomach lining, so that when you get all this food on top, it's when it starts generating the signals, yeah, we've got food. Now, one of the problems we have, and you remember when I talked about inflammation, is there's a lot of signaling going on in your body. And the leptin signals might not get to the brain what intensity they should get, and you continue eating. And this is a big problem. And it creates a thing called leptin resistance, which happens a lot with obese people and people that generally have a problem with the leptin production. And the high leptin levels are interpreted by the brain in your hypothalamus that the energy reserves are high. So you can stop eating. There is no need to start and overeat. But it's not as simple as this, because the leptin touches a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff makes it go up and down. You know, the leptin will be affected by your sleep deprivation. It will reduce your leptin. But on the other side, if you are obese, and this kind is like a paradox, if you are obese, it increases the amount of leptin. So it generates this overwhelming quantity of signals in your body that, yeah, we are full, but the obese people get so overwhelmed with it that they just continue eating because the body starts just ignoring it. This is what we call leptin resistant. It also gets increased with emotional stress. So that's why emotional stress affects a lot of people in multiple different ways, depending on how their body composition, how their hormone levels are in the process. Physical exercises reduces your levels of leptin, because it says, well, basically you will need nourishment to replenish the energy you need to get. It's decreased by an increase in testosterone, so that is actually a good thing to affect your leptin levels. On the estrogen side, by the way, it's the opposite. It is increased when you increase in estrogen, and the insulin, because of that regulation, also increases leptin. So there is not much that we can really do to hack the way the leptin works, but one thing that I will talk about in the future videos will be about mindful eating, to be careful and understand how we eat and be conscious of what we are eating and allow the food to generate the signals. You know, avoid fast food, and I'm talking about the other, not the food itself, but the fast, you know, being fast just doesn't help, because this signal is one of the slower signals to get to the brain as we eat. I hope you are enjoying the video so far. I'm very keen on producing good content for you, and for you to please keep me motivated. It doesn't cost you a thing. Please hit the like button, subscribe to this channel. It is new, and I do want to reach the 1,000 subscribers. And please share with your friends and with everybody you feel that should benefit from this information. Okay, carrying on. Another hormone that is important is ghrelin, and ghrelin is the opposite of leptin, which I just mentioned. It messages to the hypothalamus that the stomach is empty. So its main function is actually to increase appetite, and this is just normal. The levels are highest just before you eat, and they are the lowest after a meal. Now, the thing that you can do to make good levels of ghrelin is manage your sleep and do the effort of doing sleep, because poor sleep increases ghrelin, and that means if you sleep badly you will always be hungry and wanting more food, and that is not a thing you want. You really want to manage that kind of level. Another hormone that plays a big thing is cortisol, and that's the stress hormone. We always hear, everybody of us has heard about cortisol, and that is a level of hormone that we need to keep as low as possible, because it leads to a lot of health issues such as heart disease, diabetes, low energy levels, high blood pressure, sleeping disturbances, and weight gain. So understanding this means we need to keep ourselves calm, manage stress, meditate, and allow to manage and keep those levels of stress really down, because weight will get completely ironed up. Well, I talked about these 4 hormones: insulin, leptin, ghrelin, and cortisol. These are probably the ones that you will hear the most, but it's not limited to these. There are many other hormones, and I've got here 6 which play also a big role: estrogen, testosterone, neuropeptide Y, peptide YY, glucagon-like peptide 1, and cholestokin. All of these play a role in your weight loss. But in a nutshell, what I'm going to say is these other hormones, they get managed very well if you eat protein, have a balanced diet, and do exercise. Protein, exercise, balanced diet. That's why I strongly recommend to be able to manage the levels of these other proteins in your body. So I hope that you liked my content for today. Once more, sorry to insist, but it doesn't cost you a thing and it will help me a lot. Please like the video, subscribe, and share the video with your friends. And in the meantime, you can see other videos that I've been producing and a lot of content that will be going, and this is the type of content that I will be generating. Thank you so much.